just about ready to go. Groovy. This is getting smoother. IP address change, not even a big deal. Sure don't look like it. Nice. Okay. Let's do this. Verify this is working here. Oh yeah, it is. Cool. Awesome. Hello and welcome to the Technocrat Live. I'm your host, Matthew Newhall. Thanks for tuning in. Boy, have I got some dystopia for you tonight. No guest tonight, but don't feel bad about that. You may also notice that I am mugless. I do not have a mug on the table. I don't know if you can spot that or not, but I kind of want you guys to give me some feedback. You know, hey, there's a hum in my studio. What? Yeah, I know there is a hum in my studio. You know there's a hum in my studio. Sorry about that, folks. Actually, I had a really great suggestion about canceling noise in here, and I had a chance this week, but maybe next week. Maybe I'll get a chance to, I may be able to cancel it out. Anyway, sorry about that. I hope it's not obnoxious. Let me know if it is. I really need to upgrade my cameras too. But this week I want to know about a mug. I got this great mug from the Area 22 folks from Laura and Mark, and unfortunately it died. It's leaking, so I can't use it. Viking themed. If anybody has any suggestions, feel free to send me a link or actually make a suggestion. Or you know, of course I'll accept donations. Yuck, yuck, yuck. If anybody wants to send me a mug. But yeah, I've had two recent issues with Viking mugs, and I feel like the third time's a charm. So I don't want to squander my luck on just any old mug. I want it to be something outstanding. Anyway, I guess I could do a merch mug, right? Just do a TTL mug. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that. Let me know what you think. If I should just sell out and have my logo on yet another thing. Okay, happy blue moon, by the way. Once in a blue moon, I will see you. If you don't know what a blue moon is, well, it's 2 moons in a month. Yeah, that's right, 2 full moons in a month. Doesn't happen very often, and hence, once in a blue moon. Please like, love, share, and comment if you enjoy this show. That's what keeps me going, interacting with you guys. Thanks, Jennifer, for tuning in. By the way, I said hello to Rich, but I didn't say hello to you. I also interact with the comments, so anybody who's commenting on the videos, I will try to talk to you about what you're saying, whether it's crazy or not. I have some really interesting stuff coming up. I've recently had some real eurekas on the nature of hypergamy and how it relates to human genetic history. Apparently there's a study going on at Cold Spring Harbor Labs. I kind of wonder if it affected the culture there, because it didn't directly, I don't remember talking to anybody about it, but maybe that had some influence on me. That's around when I came up with SivGene. I'm going to be writing a SivGene shortly. It looks like SivGene happened around the same time as there were major changes in mating behavior in humans, like catastrophically different changes. And I don't think that that's a coincidence globally, because cultures weren't really interacting with each other. In fact, cultures are kind of stalwarts or bulkheads against other outsiders coming in. So I think it may have been a genetic change that provided a huge advantage. I don't think that that's a coincidence. Anyway, very interesting to check that out if you're interested. There's the variation, the genetic, the contribution of the entire male population to the genetic variation of the species was very, very low. And I'm going to get into more detail because it's going to be politically hot, but it's also really important. I mean, this is how we step out of Darwin, people. Hey, Ariella, thanks for tuning in. Bourbon country, all right. Yeah, so let me know if you want. I'm thinking about doing like a special or maybe even a special series just discussing the genetic anthropology of human sexuality. I know it sounds nerdy and dorky, but I'm kind of masking the absolute controversy in it with fancy words. So yeah, if you want to know why men and women do the things they do as a whole, you know, of course, don't want to stereotype. There's always exceptions to every rule. That's the nature with humans. There's always humans who play it straight or play it really dirty or game the system or just defect in general, just because outliers are where the interesting data is. And flipping the game board over is one way to win the game, or at least make everyone else lose. All right, so without further ado, let me know if that's something that's interesting to you, and I'll get into it in a separate segment. I don't think I'll talk about it on the show, but I can't cover it in depth in the show because it would just be a huge thing. Definitely news to me though. Check out that I guess it's a male bottleneck. A genetic male bottleneck. You know how like you have the genetic bottleneck where we were down to 10,000 mating pairs in the Ice Age? It's like a male genetic bottleneck, and it's pretty recent. We just figured this out recently, so major changes in culture, I think. All right, oh, we got something here. So Eric says, when you're ready to discuss web casting equipment, microphones and stuff, we can get you artist price. Yes, artist pricing sounds amazing, and I would appreciate that. My microphones are okay. The issue isn't even my, we've used, not my microphones, but we've used, what am I, who is texting me? This is very exciting. I think the microphones I'm using are okay, and I know the mixing board I'm using is okay. We used it at Area 22 and nobody complained. I actually brought it in as an auxiliary mixing board when we had a panel, and Steve ended up using it. So it's not that. It could be a wire, but I don't think so. There's actually a audible hum inside the studio. So it's a hum in this room. It has to do with the equipment for the people who are in the room below me. So, but there's a way to cancel it out, and maybe I'll do it for next episode. That would be kind of a cool reveal. I can do that one for free. The cameras, yeah, that's expensive. Doing good cameras. It's like a seance in here. It's so dark to get the lighting right. I can hardly read. That's why I'm constantly sticking my glasses on. My eyes are bad, but I should be able to see this with good lighting. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into Dystopia Report. We got another comment. Anyone else that wants artist pricing, let me know. Okay, well, wow, that's generous. I thought I was special there for a second. Darn it. I may be special anyway, but that's not why. Okay, tech government. So let's get into the FCC. So yeah, apparently, is this right? Yeah, the FCC. Okay, all right. FCC refuses to skip the requirement for ISPs to list their fees as part of their access price. So the FCC basically told people that they have to told the people in the ISP companies that they have to list all of the fees up front when they're advertising their internet deals, so that people can make fair decisions about what their internet's actually going to cost, and then pick the best company for the job. Well, they basically compared it to nutrition labels and even gave an example label of how it would look, and it looks very much like a nutrition label. Well, the ISPs have pushed back and said, well, this is too complicated. We don't like that. We don't want to have to tell people what they're going to pay. And the FCC just told them tough noogies. So good for them. Really awesome. They just said, you have to do this. No more excuses. And supposedly it starts right now. Now, I dug around. I cannot find what the penalties will be, but I can't imagine that this is going to be free for them. I assume the FCC can just sue them for violating the law, or maybe there's criminal penalties. I hope it's not just fines, because sometimes fines become a tax, and then they just keep doing whatever they do. So I hope that's not the case. But anyway, Ars Technica, if you want to know more. And if anybody hears about what the penalties are going to be for the ISPs who don't want to tell you what their service is actually going to cost, let me know. Okay, and this is actually, that story affects everybody in the United States. Everybody needs internet of some form or another. It'd be very interesting to see how that's going to affect, by the way, the recent 5G additions as far as dedicated internet connections via 5G. You know, of course, they're higher latency, but other than that, they could be very, very viable. You know, the wireless solutions for internet, and if they're going to be affected by this, because this could put a damper on the cell phone, what are typically known as the cell phone company's business too, as well. Also, but that probably wouldn't have been the lead story. I actually have two really good lead stories in tech government. The other one is the U.S. is going to fight China with robots. Yeah, we're gonna fight China with robots. This is what the Pentagon just said. Yeah. So they got a 2-year ramp up. The name of the operation to get us to the point where we can rapidly roll out robots on an assembly line to fight a war. They didn't use the word robots. They said automation, but the operation is called Replicator. So Operation Replicator is a go. And yeah. Can anybody think of what would go wrong with making massive factories that can churn out machines of war to fight a foreign country? Skynet? Anyone? Jesus, come on. I mean, it's crazy. What? What? The reasoning is Taiwan. That's what they're saying. They're saying that Taiwan is the reason. And the logistical reason, of course, is the fact that China has vast numbers of equipment, vastly larger numbers of equipment and soldiers, which is true. And then if we got into a protracted war with Taiwan, we might lose because we simply can't get troops to the ground. This is very interesting because right now we're denying flat out that we're doing badly in Ukraine, but there's strong rumors swirling around the toilet bowl that Ukraine is not able to recruit any other local soldiers, and subsequently Ukraine is losing the war. Who knows if that's true? What's this? Okay, no, not having to do with the show. Just getting random texts. All right, so anyway, yeah, not really great. Politico.com, although a lot of different places are covering it. Yeah, I mean, robot army. Yeah, that's going to be great. You know, everybody who's been like, I can't believe they'd strap a gun to a robot dog, like in Black Mirror. Yeah, that's all we're going to be doing. On to tech. So it looks like Amazon may be ready to start firing people who don't go to work. Amazon has put in a call requiring people to come in for 3 days a week. And the CEO actually came out and publicly, I don't know if it leaked, I think it leaked. No, it didn't leak, but it was quasi-public, and Business Insider picked it up. Although the source I have here is Associated Press. You go, Business Insider. Anyway, the CEO said it's probably not going to work out for the Amazon employees that are refusing to. DNA reveals all. Yeah, Ariella, holy shit. I'm actually afraid to talk about that story. I mean, if you don't know, I'll just give you guys a preview. If you don't know what hypergamy is, just go look it up and combine that with species polymorphism as opposed to monomorphism. Yeah. Anyway, so it's crazy what this means for humanity, and I spent a lot of time racking my brain, so you know what, I think I'm going to have to do it anyway. Nobody's going to pay any attention to me anyway, so I might as well tell the people I know about what's going on. I know you guys are interested. But yeah, DNA really does reveal all, in the sense that it's kind of like encryption. There's very bad, very impossible statistics that it's lying, especially when you're looking at a species-wide DNA changes and how they synchronize. Anyway, yeah, so Amazon apparently is going to be firing people. That's kind of what I'm reading between the lines here. Now, if you're wondering how many people, no, Amazon has over 1 million people working for it. I think that's correct. Let me know if that's not right. But apparently there were up to 33,000 1,000 people online complaining about this possible policy change of having to go in. I assume this is strictly office work. Obviously, you have to go in if it's warehouse or delivery. So yeah, it's possible. Figure half of them will fold. So we might be looking at Amazon firing 16,000 people, super highly skilled tech workers. So if you're a technocrat and you're interested in working for Amazon, this might be your chance. Anyway, pretty interesting. And I get the employee's point about working from home, but the numbers are out. I mean, this thing with Zoom just leaked the other day. It looks really bad for companies when people only work from home. They do have to meet up occasionally. Maybe 3 times a week is too many times, but 0 is definitely too little. And I'm not against working from home. I think it's beautiful, but that's just the way it goes. All right, so also in tech, FreeBSD apparently has made some major changes to their boot system. I don't normally cover FreeBSD too much because there's not a lot of news with it, but apparently one of the head developers for FreeBSD got really fed up because he has to use Linux on Linux in Amazon, and that's not what he wants to do, and it ticked him off. So he managed to find a spot in the boot up. He made it changes all across the boot up to make it faster, but he managed to find one spot where apparently they were still using bubble sort inside of their boot up. He replaced it with merge sort, which is widely known in computer science circles as a faster sort algorithm, and managed to get it down to about a third of the best boot sequence for Linux, and that particular section of the code was a 400% improvement. Wow! I mean, just talk about mind-boggling. FreeBSD apparently on a VM. This is only on a VM that's designed for it. Can boot in 25 milliseconds, as opposed to the fastest speed in Linux is about 75 to 80. Now you might be like, why the hell does this matter? Well, first of all, let me give you a little history on why the hell this would matter. Hold on a second. I'm reading something about Ancestry. Someone just got their stuff put onto Ancestry.com. Oh, and she may have a first cousin that they don't know about. Wow, somebody was sowing their wild oats, apparently. That's interesting. Well, that's a thing. That's not what I was going to talk about. That's not the revelation that I've had, the news to media category that dovetails perfectly with SIVG and kind of verifies it possibly. But that is also another aspect of something that's radically changed since the discovery and widespread use of DNA sequencing, even in its more primitive forms. Anyway, so BSD is a lot faster. And you may be like, why does this matter? Well, if you're on the cloud and you're automatically spinning up new computers, and you're trying to react to, say, let's say you have a website that only normally needs 2 or 3 servers to run, and then suddenly 5 million people find out about your product and all want to go to your website at once. Like, let's say it shows up in the news. That's a typical way that happens. And I've actually seen this happen. I've worked at institutions where this has happened. You want to spin up as many computers as fast as you can. And this may be a situation where you can now because of FreeBSD's changes. So very interesting in kind of a news to me subcategory. Apparently a lot of work was put into the VM software so that VirtIO could be used to just completely not initialize hardware. That's one of the things that's happening here. Normally when you turn a physical computer on, you would have to initialize hardware. And in this case, you don't have to initialize any hardware. There's no like routines where you say, oh, card, do this, do that, do this, turn this on, turn that on, let's check this. Okay, everything works, we'll add you to the bus. There's none of that because it's all virtual. So it just says, oh, are you there? Yep, okay, next thing. And it's super, super fast. And that stuff isn't really necessary if it's virtual hardware. Anyway, so I just wanted to point something out about boot times, that back in the day, Linux was way, way earlier than, say, any of the BSDs on really fast boot times, and operating systems like Windows and OS X had were getting faster and faster boot times, and the way they were doing it is they were kind of cutting corners in the sense of as far as like reliability is concerned, but not really. It turned out that they weren't really impacting the reliability. See, normally Linux was following an old tradition of everything booting up in sequence, so you could figure out which thing broke if the boot up didn't occur. But OS X and Windows started to stop doing that. And OS X has a very similar kernel model, and actually uses a lot of the same software that Linux does underneath. So the Linux guys are like, well, why aren't we doing this? Like the distros, you know, the desktop teams and the distros. And so they started finding ways, and they got ridiculed, like ridiculed, for changing from the old standby of init, which did things in sequence, to doing things simultaneously on boot up. And it's really funny to see the BSD guys come around and be like, oh, boot time is really important. Yeah, I mean, it always was. And some of us knew that. Anyway, onward. I had to rib the BSD guys a little bit, but you know, still, congrats. This is a major change. Anyway, on to AI. So artificial intelligence, not really artificial intelligence. Machine learning doesn't kind of manage it that much. This is kind of hallucinations gone mad. Hallucinations are when AI says, basically lies or makes something up, says something that's completely not true, and it's happened again. And this one is bad, folks. If you are into wild mushrooms or foraging nature, foraging in nature for food, in other words, walking through the woods and finding something and eating it, damn, you better look out, because people have been cranking out ChatGPT generated foraging books, specifically ones with wild mushrooms. And mushrooms are notoriously difficult to select which mushrooms are going to be tasty and which mushrooms are going to kill you. Extremely poisonous species look very similar to completely harmless species. And simple, lighthearted hallucinations in these books, presented as if they were written by a human being, will kill people. And they're selling a lot of them. They're all over the place. This story comes from 404media.co, and yeah, I mean, they go out of their way to make these books look as if a human being wrote them, including illustrations. I mean, even the author's pictures on the back of the book are computer generated with a different AI software. They're just complete fabrications. So this is like a real life and death situation where people using ChatGPT to crank out a profit. I mean, if they only have to sell 1,000 books, and it was worth their time because they had to put almost zero effort in. It doesn't look like they were heavily edited. The tools that don't work so great to verify AI-written text were able to successfully verify that these books are not written by human beings. And when mushroom experts look at the analysis and explanations of which mushrooms are safe, they know they're not true. So yeah, anyway, there's a lot of fakes on Amazon. You may want to do some research on your author when you're getting a book that your livelihood or your life depends on, because literature is just spiraling out of control. Anyway, so that's it for AI for this week. Science. So we just have the one science story. NIH published a study from Columbia University. It's funny, it's all about the magic mushrooms in the pot this week. Apparently there's elevated lead levels in blood and urine of marijuana smokers. Now, this is not entirely news that there's high lead content in some marijuana plants. If there's lead in the soil or any heavy metals in the soil, marijuana is notoriously good for soaking it up, and then guess what? You smoke it if you happen to smoke that pot. Also, cadmium is another major problem. This was a study of 7,200 adults. The 358 of those adults were actually active users of marijuana. They didn't specify how they used it, which is important. Which is those 358 people had 27% higher lead levels than everybody else. Not good, not healthy. You got to think about this if you're smoking pot, people. There's legal pot. You know, one of the things that the article source cited that I read for this, the article that led me, I didn't write the article down. Anyway, there's several articles on this, but one of the things that the article pointed out is that sometimes marijuana dispensaries, even though marijuana dispensaries are legal at a state level in most states at this point, some of the marijuana dispensaries you see are not actually legal. They're just pop-up businesses and they never got a license to sell. So their quality control, they're basically dealers with a storefront. You may want to think about that carefully. So some states have higher heavy metal detection setups in their exports for marijuana than others. So you may want to do some research and find out which states require competent screening for lead in their pot before you buy pot. And you may want to go to a dispensary that specifically can either pick out or exclusively sources from those states. Some states have good standards, some states have really bad ones. Also, another thing that you can do is you may want to consider edibles if it's all the same to you, because inhalation absorption is 100%. If you smoke pot that's heavy in lead, all the lead goes into your bloodstream, which is probably why these people are 27% higher. Another element of this is that you may want to think about possibly vaping synthetics. There are 3 different kinds of THC which come from pot. One of them is the THCC has its own risks. It's a completely synthetic THC. The other 2 are the two kinds of THC that are actually found in large doses and in small doses in pot plants. If they're synthetically generating this stuff because it was more economical, they're not going to have these lead problems. So I know everyone's like, vaping is unsafe. Well, in this case, you may actually be safer vaping than you would be smoking actual sweet leaf. Anyway, the science of sweet leaves, thanks to Columbia University. And science, that's what we do here. Okay, so that was it for Dystopia Report. No guests this week. I'm hoping to get guests in the next coming weeks. My life's a little chaotic, so I didn't want to go too crazy with the show this week. But please, if there's somebody that you want to see me have on the show, or somebody you want to see me interview, boy, can I grill them on technology ethics. I love talking about this. I could do this until the cows come home. And thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I love you all. Okay, choose wisely, choose to share. Good night, everyone. And let me know about that mug. I want to know. Good night.